on Facebook and YouTube. They're coming on. So, what's up, Geraldine? What's up, Erica, Lizzie? Good to see everybody checking in. Adam, good to see everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Oops, I'm sorry, I have to go away. Oh, all right, Izzy and Blue. That's fine. Thanks for checking in for a little bit. What's up, Bianca? Good to see you. Always good to see you, my friend. Vanessa, good to see you. So glad that everybody's here tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about creating more intimacy, and so we're going to go at this from a different standpoint, different perspective, but creating intimacy as exclusives, right? As people that are, what many people would call single. Have a good night, Izzy. People say, "Oh, you're singles," but I call you and I call me exclusives, right? Exclusive. That means we are set apart for specific reasons, right? We are not just common and casual to be handled any kind of way. No, you have purpose. I have purpose, and even when you're in a relationship, you're still an exclusive. You still have purpose. I believe this. I believe that the individual is the most important person in a relationship, which means this: each individual that is in the relationship needs to see themselves as equally important, and they need to take care of themselves. And so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about intimacy, and we're going to talk about this from the standpoint of experiences. How do we create intimacy? Intimacy is an experiential thing. And the way we practice creating intimacy, we can do this on our own by ourselves without anybody else being there. It's the way that we're going to do this is go from thinking about things to actually executing, actually doing things. Why? Because when you go from having a thought about something, right, that's one level. But once you initiate a thought about something, you actually create space and distance between where you are right now and that thing that you see in the future, right? This thing that you dream about, you envision, you recognize that it is not in your present. That's why we dream about stuff. We think about stuff, we dream about things because they are not in our present situation. We're thinking about something else, right? Makes sense. So when you start thinking about things, you actually create space in between where you are and where you want to go. Now, what is intimacy about? Intimacy is about closing the space between two things. Intimacy is about connection. See, that's the point of intimacy. We get it all complicated, and we get off track, and we think it is all about like sexual intimacy. Well, that's a type of intimacy. That's an expression of intimacy, right? It could be emotional intimacy. There are different expressions of intimacy. But intimacy itself speaks to closing the space between two things so that there's connection. And so in our personal lives, when we look at creating more intimacy, how do we do that? If I'm not dating anybody, if I'm not romantically involved, how do I practice creating intimacy? Well, this is how you do it. You have thoughts and you execute. So today, just like an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, one of the young ladies that I train and work with at the barn with the horses, she was there. And a few weeks ago, she had told me about this TikTok that she saw. She said, "I saw this TikTok, Mr. Brian, where this girl, she was riding her horse and she rode her horse into the barn. And when the horse got to the stall, she said there was this bar that went across the stall. And so she rode her horse all the way up to the stall, and then she grabs the bar, and then the horse keeps walking into the stall, and she like is hanging on the bar, and then she just jumps down. She's like, I want to do that. I want to do that. Mr. Brian, you think you could do it? I was like, yeah, I could do it. So I get on the horse and I do it. And she's like, oh, that's so cool. She's like, but there you go, showing off. You can do everything. Anyway, the point is, so for the last few weeks, she's been saying she wanted to do it and, kind of stalling. That's what so corny. Like, I was like, you're stalling. And then she would start to laugh. She's like, yeah, I see what you did there. That's a pun. I was like, I wasn't making a pun, but, like, I was just saying what it is. You're stalling. But so she had been talking about this, but she was stalling. Why was she stalling? Because she was afraid. She's like, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. So today, it's kind of like rainy a little bit, and we're shutting down the barn for the day and whatnot. And I was like, all right. I said, get on the horse and do it. She's like, well, no, Mr. Brian, I'm scared. I was like, I don't care. I really don't care that you're afraid. I was like, What you're talking about is not important, more important than what I'm talking about right now. I was like, I know you're afraid, but you're going to do it anyway. But Miss Bryant, I don't know if I can ride the horse bareback. I was like, you know, you can ride the horse bareback. You've ridden the horse bareback. Get up on the horse. But Mr. Bryant, she's like, but Mr. Bryant and me. I'm like, no, I'm not taking it. No, this is why it's important. First of all, it's important that you have people around you that know your capabilities and can hear your fears and not pay you any mind when you start talking about them. I was like, I know that you're capable of doing this. I'm not going to allow you to be robbed by fear. I was like, get up there and do it. She's like, but Mr. Bryant, I'm so afraid. I'm so nervous. I was like, I know, I understand. I was like, I don't even care. I was like, I don't care that you're nervous. It doesn't even matter. And so what happened is she's talking and I'm talking faster and I'm over talking her. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Get up on the horse. And she's like, but I don't want to. I said, it's fine. You don't have to. But guess what? Here's what's going to happen. I was like, if you don't get up there and do it, next week I'm assigning you a different horse. And I know she didn't want a different horse. She's like, no, but no, I don't want to do that. I was like, look, it's totally up to you. You don't have to do it, but there is going to be a consequence. If you keep on messing around with this fear, there is a consequence of you not having the experiences of life because you're afraid. There's a consequence. But Mr. Bryant, I was like, just get up on the horse and do it. So then she gets on the horse and then she tries it a couple of times. She's on the horse. She rides down the lane. She goes into the stall. She looks at the bar, but she didn't grab it. She just went into the stall. I was like, do it again. But Mr. Bryant, do it again. Do it again. I was like, we're just going to keep on doing this. And I said, if your mom shows up before you do it, I was like, you're definitely getting the next horse next week. So long story short, which really wasn't that short because I just told a long story. So what happens is ultimately, after 3 times of riding in the stall and begging me to let one of the other young ladies do it, she's like, why don't you let her do it first? I was like, because it's your idea. I'm not going to allow somebody else to do your idea before you on your horse. No, there's like, I was like, no shot. I'm not doing that. See, sometimes in life, we have to put our foot down for our friends, those people that we love, those people that we care about, and for ourselves. Sometimes you might not have the person that's around you that's going to just put their foot down, but this is why we need one another. This is why relationship is important. We need to have some people in our lives that aren't going to take our excuses. Right? Bianca said it. She's like, I remember those days. You wouldn't be playing at all. No, I'm not. No, I'm not letting you be robbed of life. But I don't know if I can. Oh, you can. And we will. And so ultimately she gets down there. She's like, you know, she's on the verge of acting like she wants to pretend like she's going to get ready to cry. I'm like, I don't care about that either. I was like, the last time, I said, remember the last time you were afraid and you would come to the barn and you would cry every day when I said, do you want to ride a horse? And you would cry, no, I don't want to ride. I don't want to ride. I'm like, yes, you do. This is why you're here. I was like, remember the last time? And you actually ended up riding and then you're galloping along. And then now all of a sudden you're having all these great adventures. I was like, remember that? Yeah. I was like, do it. She gets down, she rides horse into the stall. She grabs the bar, which I knew she was capable of holding herself up. She's like, what if I let myself go? I was like, if you let yourself go, you're going to fall. But just yesterday, I saw her hanging on the bar, lifting her legs over another bar. I was like, you have enough strength to hold yourself. I was like, I saw you do it just yesterday. I said, what you were doing then was harder than what you're about to do now. And see, sometimes, again, we need somebody that's going to have some perspective of us that's different than what we can see. She thinks that she's not strong enough, but yesterday I saw her doing something that required more strength. I was like, I know you can do this. You're going to actually just hold the bar for a second or two. The horse is going to walk in. That's going to be it. And you know what? She did it. She did it. She rides up, grabs the bar, holds on. The horse walks into the stall. I recorded it. I have it on video. She jumps down. She's like, that was so scary. I'm never doing it again. And you know what I said to her? I was like, don't. I said, you did it the one time. It's done. You did it. I was like, it doesn't matter if you ever do it again. You did it. You did the thing. You now have an intimate experience with that. See, intimacy, you close the gap from something you were thinking about to something that actually happened. It went from a thought to happening. You have an intimate experience now. And so many of us, we don't have enough intimacy in our lives because we only think about things and we don't execute those things. We just have dreams that never become materialized. We never do the thing, right? Like people want intimacy, like in their relationships, in their romance. Oh, I just want to have intimacy. But you don't want to get naked. You want to have you want to have this intimacy, this closeness, but you want to leave everything on. You want to keep somebody, you don't want to let somebody all the way in. Like, that is not how it works. I want intimacy, but I'm so ashamed of my body. You're blocking. You're actually being a blocker right now. Like, that's not how intimacy works. In the Bible, you might not be a Bible person, but this is a great verse. Trust me. When you go into Genesis chapter 2 and you read down, it says that the man and the woman were together and they were naked and not ashamed. They had intimacy. You're like, I don't believe the Bible. So what? Don't you want to get naked and not be ashamed? That's great. Okay. Like, take it, run with that. If you don't run with the rest, you might not want Jesus. At least run with the beginning part. Like, look, that's great for every relationship, that you could have intimacy, that you don't have things separating you. That girl's fears were separating her from her experience. And so what happened between her thought and her actually having that experience? There have been a couple weeks that have gone by where she's been afraid. Even today, she needed to go through, and she rode the horse through, and then she argued with me, and then she rode the horse through, and then she argued with me some more, and then she told me why she was afraid, and she did all this talking. But guess what? That was a part of the journey. That was a part of the experience of creating the intimate moment. And now and forever, she can say she had it. She did the thing. So here's the question. What is it that's been in your mind and on your mind and you've been thinking about and dreaming about, but you're afraid? Like, what is that thing? What's the adventure of your life that is waiting for you to actually have it? Like, you got to be honest a little bit. Like, be honest with yourself. What is the adventure? What is the thought? What is the dream? What is the aspiration? What is that next step that you can take to go to the next level in your life where you create more intimacy? Like, with your thoughts, like, you have a thought, but now it needs to become more intimate. It needs to become an experience. You need to go on the journey between where you are and where you want to go. You need to have that journey, because the journey is going to teach you about the process of intimacy. Last night, we talked about making love, right? Making love. If you are going to put together the ingredients of love and actually make it, experiences are a part of the ingredients, and experiences add to the richness of life. Experiences add to the richness of love. Because when you love yourself enough to have an experience, when you love yourself enough to go for it, to try, to get healthy, to get strong, to launch your business, to write your book, to go somewhere you've never been before, to book a vacation and just travel alone, to get your passport and go to a different country. All of that, you're creating experiences of love because you loved yourself so much that you gave yourself a chance. It's about intimacy happens when your inside meets the outside. When thoughts meet your physical world. That's intimate. That's an intimate moment. Have you ever thought about the last time that you had a thought, a dream, something that you desired? Like, do you remember the last time you thought about something and then you saw it happen? Perhaps you went back to school or did something, but you had a thought and then you went through this process and then it happened. Like, no one can take that from you. You can't even take it from yourself. You might try to downplay it, but no one can take that from you, that you actually have intimate knowledge of that. You know what it took. You knew the price that you paid. You know it. See, when we talk about this thing called love and relationships, like, love is one thing, but knowing is a whole nother thing. When you know something, that's intimacy. That means I am so connected to you that there is knowledge of this. Nobody can take that from me. See, when we start building intimacy in our relationships, it gets harder for somebody to get in between that. You're like, no. We have intimate knowledge of one another. We work in this space. We this is how we operate. We operate in experiences. This is what we do. Intimacy. So we create intimacy. By having thoughts, taking actions. By having the inside meet the outside. I shared this earlier. It's something that I think about quite often as I think about the relationships with men and women, and how oftentimes it's said like men are very visual and men are very physical, and yet women are more emotional and women care more about the internal. And so one day I was just really just putting a lot of time into thinking about this as it pertained to creating intimacy. And I saw something when I was like studying my Bible, right? And I thought about how in the beginning, the story with Adam said that he was there and he was by himself, and the Lord said it wasn't good for this man to be alone. He was working and taking care of situations and tending to the earth and all that stuff, but it wasn't good for him to be alone, right? I'm like, okay, that's cool. So what happens? It says that the Lord causes him to fall asleep, and then he removes one of his ribs. But I go back and I started thinking about that. I'm like, Adam, much like all of us, we operate on a daily basis, and generally we don't think about our internal, but so much, unless something is kind of going, wrong or hurting or something like that. Okay. So I figured Adam probably wasn't thinking much about his ribs. I know on a daily basis, I don't think about mine. I'm like, I'm glad they're there, but I don't really think about them. But that same rib that he wasn't thinking much about, when it was removed from him and this woman is formed and she's brought to him, this man now acknowledges the presence of this woman, and he says, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of myself, flesh of my flesh. I will call her woman, for she was taken out of man. And it got me thinking that he didn't really pay attention to the rib, perhaps like most of us, until it presented itself in the real world, the tangible world. He needed an external experience with something that was inside of him for him to really, really start acknowledging it and talking about it. There was something on the inside. It had been there, but he wasn't talking about it. There are no quotes that say he was talking about his body and how he loved the inside and his. No, there was nothing like that. It wasn't until there was something formulated on the outside that he said, now this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. I will call her woman, for she was taken from me. And I imagine, like, because this is what I do. I'm a little bit like childlike, innocent even. I imagine that the woman who was, as the story says, was once a rib, is thinking, man, you weren't even paying attention to me. I've been inside you all this time. I was connected to you. I was on the inside. Not that this is how it is, but think about it. A rib, our ribs, their perspective of us is an internal perspective. The rib closest to the heart says, I have an internal perspective of the heart. I see my job on the inside as being protective, and I see what's going on in here. And I know there's some stuff on the outside, but the inside is, to me, is far more important because I see what I'm protecting. I'm protecting this heart. And so now I'm thinking about this. And again, like I said, this is not like some scholarly thing, but this is just me being imaginative. And I'm thinking about this, how there's a different perspective of the same thing. And then it got me thinking about how the differences, men and women, how women are receivers and men are givers. And I know somebody right now is like, I know plenty of men that aren't givers. Let's just talk, anatomically. Anatomically, a man gives. Anatomically, a woman receives. Okay. If you haven't been through that class in school yet, you'll get there. But that's how anatomically it works. Okay, so and it caused me to think, because I'm trying to figure out how can I be the best man that I can be, and I'm sharing this with you, and hopefully it encourages you. But I'm thinking about the best man that I can be, and I think about why a woman would be so much more driven by the emotional and the internal. And I think about how if someone was making a deposit into my life, if they had the opportunity to plant something into my life, a man can plant seed into a woman's womb, into her being, and from that another human is born. If someone is going to make a deposit into your life, you're going to be very, 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 very careful in a lot of cases, and very much more mindful about what's happening and going on into the inside of you. You're going to be much more protective. If for a person that's just shooting something off into someone else, it makes sense. They're they're going to be probably a little less protective of what they're shooting off because they're sending something out. They're not keeping it. Men, we're not keeping seed. We release seed. It's going out. And so you start thinking about why things happen. Why would someone feel this way versus this way? Externally, if I'm going and plunging into someone and moving into someone, that's different. I'm thinking more physical because it's going in. That person's receiving, that's something totally different. And so it doesn't seem so confusing on why we would be and operate a little differently. When we look at just the way that we exist anatomically, it makes sense. See, a man can release seed and keep moving, and a woman is going to be in a situation where she's creating life and cultivating life for months and months and months and months. That's a different experience. I've never had that experience, but I know plenty of women that have. That's a different experience. When you have, and I'm saying this because I'm thinking about how we create intimacy, connection, understanding of one another. When we start thinking about just how we operate, how we are made, it gets different because I understand why the emotional, the internal would mean so much to you when you have a womb that can hold life and cultivate and bring life about. So if I can start to understand you, then I am closing the distance because now I'm thinking and I'm considering what you may experience. And I want to be close to you and I want to honor your experience. And so when we start doing that for one another, we now start to close the communication gap and we start to realize, like, you know what? We don't have to have this separation because I'm starting to think and consider you. It's not just all attitude. It's not that we're all this way and we're all that way. No, sometimes we just don't consider one another enough to actually start breaking down the walls of separation and create intimacy. Sometimes if we just get back to the basics of operation, we can start seeing each other differently. We can start honoring the different capacities that we have and say, you know what? I honor you. And because you are that way, and I'm this way, and I see that we're different, yet we can honor one another. We can close the gaps of communication and close that separation. We can eliminate the separation and have greater intimacy. See, the thing and I say this a lot, when we have our thoughts and our words, when we use our thoughts and our words to disqualify someone from ever understanding us, we'll never have intimacy. I tell all my female friends and clients, I'm like, don't ever say that a man can't understand you. Because the moment that you say that he can't understand you, you've now let him off the hook. Because if you tell me that I can't do it, then you've eliminated all possibilities of it happening. So then why should I try? I was like, if you really want to get to a guy, start telling him what you believe he can do. Start telling them, like, I know, babe, I know you can. I know that you, more than any other man in the world, can understand me. What? You say that to a guy, guess what? He's going to be like, oh, you do? You think I could do that? Babe, I know you can do it. He's going to be drawn to that. Because now you are speaking into his life and into his hearing something that builds him up and says, I know that I am intimately connected with you. So I have the knowledge that you have the capacity to do this. We talked about capacity last night. Don't rob somebody of their capacity with your own words, especially not if you want them to pour into your life. And brothers, like, don't say, oh man, I could never understand her. Don't say that. I played baseball my entire life. And here's what I know. When I started off in T-ball, it was like, like, I don't know what you call T-ball, but we're just running around. It is not very coordinated. We don't know what we're doing. Half the time we're swinging at a ball that's not even moving and you miss it and you're hitting the tee and you can't really throw that well. It's a mess. T-ball is a mess. It's funny to watch, but it's a mess. And so that was my level. I started off at T-ball, but I started off at T-ball believing I could be a major leaguer. I was like, I'm going to go to the pros. I'm going to play in the major leagues, even though I'm in T-ball. But there's some levels to this thing. You got to move up through some levels. There was nothing about me that said I wouldn't understand the game. And so as I grew up, I started to understand things differently. We started to, at a certain level in baseball, you start able to steal bases, and you start calling pitches where the coach is telling you what pitch to throw and stuff like that. And you have signs. They're not saying words. They'll, you pinch your ear and you swipe down, your arm, and, all kinds of stuff. Touch your nose. There are signs. And all of a sudden, we have a language that is that's not even known to other people, but just amongst our team, we create our own language. Why? Because we've created intimacy on this team. There's knowledge of one another in the plan. And then later on in life, I used to watch games on TV and have the sound on and all that. Now, I can watch a baseball game, a full baseball game, with no sound, and sit there and figure out, take educated guesses about what pitch is coming, whether or not somebody's going to steal a base. I'm seeing things in this game that haven't happened, but I can sit there and basically figure it out, or at least have a pretty solid guess at what's going to happen. How does that happen? How do you go from barely being able to throw or hit a ball to being able to figure out things that are going to happen in the future in a game? You study, you learn, you give attention to it, you practice, you keep showing up, you practice some more, right? This is all can happen, and it can happen in any relationship. But the expectation is that this is what's going to happen. The expectation is this is how you are going to conduct yourself. This is the knowledge that you're going to have. And if you can't do it, then you get cut from the team. See, if somebody really doesn't have the capacity, they shouldn't be on the team. You got to cut them. That young girl riding that horse into the stable, like into the stall. The reason I knew that she could do that is because I've tested her capacity every step of the way. From when she first showed up and she was crying at the thought of getting on a horse, to seeing her gallop on a horse, to seeing her fall off of a horse. I saw her fall off of a horse. And guess what? She learned a lesson then too, because I always tell her, hey, tighten up your saddle. And she didn't. And her saddle tilted to the side. She fell off, knocked the wind out of her. She had to walk back to the barn. I walked with her. And guess what? She now checks her saddle. She now makes sure it's secure. And she still has dreams of doing things. But all along the way, I'm testing her capacity. And I'm saying, I know you can do it, but I'm scared. I know you can do it. But Mr. Brian, I'm like, I don't want to hear it. I am not okay with you settling. And I'm saying this to you right now. I am not okay with you settling for your fears. Because every fear that you are arguing for, those are the fears that you are going to keep. The more you try to tell me that you can't, I'm not going for that for you. You need to keep on going. Right? Like because you're capable, you're able. You had the dream. And it wasn't a dream to torment you, it was a dream to move you. The thought you had, oh, I want to lose 100 pounds. I want to go, walk across America. I want to start my own business. I want to dye my hair purple. Whatever it is, I want to go on a date. Those thoughts, they're not there to torment you. They're there to encourage you into your next move. They're there to help you to have an intimate experience with your best and most creative and most wildest dreams. Think about that. Your most wonderful dreams are an invitation to intimacy. I don't want you thinking that I'll never have the love of my life. Stop saying that. That's ridiculous. No, don't say that. If you're dreaming the dream, start walking in it, start moving in it, start believing in it, start taking action for it, start preparing for it. Like if you want to get married and you haven't found out how much like the marriage license costs and you haven't put that in an envelope yet, you don't really want to get married yet. Now this might not be for everybody, but this is how we do. If you really want to get married, you go ahead and you find out how much the marriage license is. You put that money in an envelope, put it somewhere, do not spend it. That money never gets touched. I don't care what's going on in your life. You leave that money. You say, nope, babe, and honey, in my future, sweetheart, in my future, I believe so much in you. I am setting aside this money. Like, I'm not even going to touch it. I believe this is our money. I'm investing in us. I'm investing in our love. I want this thing so much. I believe in it so much. I'm so excited about it. Look, I'm looking right now. Like Natalie said, yep. Julie said, done. $100 in the envelope. Ruby said, LOL. I have $78 saved up so far. Like, this is what we come on. We are action takers. We can't sit here and play the game no more. We're not playing the emotional game. No, $5,000 for my wedding. Natalie has to put aside. Come on now. Your dream is an invitation to intimacy. Like so many of us, we're afraid. I remember when like in business, I was afraid. I was afraid of like presenting certain offers. I'm like, oh, okay. It used to be hard. First, you make your first sale, and I was like, all right, I'm charging $50. $50 for an hour. I was afraid. I was like, oh my gosh, nobody's gonna pay me $50 for an hour. Okay, then I say $50. Then somebody pays it, and I'm like, oh snap, okay. Then you're developing, you're learning more skills, right? But I remember when I first let me go back. When I first started making money, my first job ever was working at Chuck E. Cheese. I worked at Chuck E. Cheese. My sister and I, we worked at Chuck E. Cheese, and we were probably making like $7, $8 an hour. So that was my first offer. They were like, hey, you want to make $8 an hour? I was like, yes, that's great. I'm getting paid $8 an hour. And then you start building up. So it went to 50. Oh, wow, that's a big deal. $50 an hour. Then you're like, okay, it goes up more and more. But my point, and I remember the first time I told somebody that it was going to cost $10,000. Like, no, this is going to be $10,000. I struggled with that for so long. I was like, I'm about to tell somebody it's going to cost $10,000 for them to work with me. Like that was like hard. But guess what? It was an experience with intimacy. It kept going up. And I one day, I'm not saying this to brag, I'm saying this to encourage you. One day I took a pad. I have these all the time. Like I'm always going to have these around. One day I took a pad like this and I wrote out like a dream that I had, a vision of an educational program. And I wrote it all out and I had it for a number of years. And I had this special pen that I got from a speech that I did, a talk that I did at my university when I graduated from college. They gave me a pen, a special pen. And I said, when I got the pen, I said, I'm going to save this pen. And when I do my first contract, I'm going to use this pen to sign the deal. So I took that pen and I made it just a very special pen. It was in a nice box and I put it aside. I didn't touch it. I didn't write with it for anything because I said, when I do my first deal, I'm going to use that pen. But with another pen and a pad like this, I started writing my vision down for this school and this idea. It started off as a chain of 24-hour daycares. And I was like, I'm gonna have a chain of 24-hour daycares. And then I was writing it all out. It's gonna be amazing. This is probably like 20 years ago. I was like, it's gonna be amazing. 24-hour daycares, cameras. This is before all this cameras and all this stuff in daycares, before all that existed. I was on that. I was like writing it all down. This is going to be amazing. And the more I dreamed, the more I dreamed. And so the more I would write, I was like, this is getting more and more fantastic. And so I finished my vision of the 24-hour daycare. And then after that, I was like, well, where are kids going to go after they leave this program? I was like, they need a school. Flip the page, keep on going. So for a long time, I just was writing this dream out. Long story short, one day somebody asked me, they're like, Brian, don't you have a dream, a vision for a school? I was like, yeah, I do. They're like, we need it. I was like, you need it? They're like, yeah, we need it. We need to see it. And then I started showing it to them. And $16+ million later, that thing was getting built. But between my idea and that $16 million plus that I took that pen out and I signed that contract with, I was asking people like, hey, can I have this idea for this program. Can your kids, I'll do this at home program. And, like your kids can come to my house and be in my school, in my house. Like, so, and I like my kids, I was like, okay, it's like 5 of y'all, but guess what? This is the beginning. We're starting. Like we got a school inside the house. And I was trying things and sampling programs and trying things and coming up with ideas and curriculum. And then I would sit with the kids. And I'm like, hey, listen, if we're going to build a school, what would you all like to see? My point in telling you this is to tell you that dreams are not there to torment you. Dreams are there to invite you into an experience of intimacy. So nobody can ever take the story from me. Because I'm like, no, I live that story. This is my story. I'm like, no, I live that. No one can tell me that just ideas on a piece of paper that doesn't matter. Oh, yes, it does. Because I have it sealed. I have the envelope. I have the yellow, tablet like sealed in an envelope. Still to this day. I'm like, no, that it did happen. We did build that school. I learned a lot. I sat in meetings with lawyers and accountants and construction people and architects. I didn't even know what I was doing. Like I had never been in that situation before. I'm like, I was just writing an idea. I was just dreaming big. And now I ended up in these spaces. Like I was like, I don't even belong here. Let me just tell you, at the time that I was writing all that stuff out, I was poor. I was like poor. I was like living below the poverty line, poor. I'll tell you, I sat in a meeting one day, right? Here I am signing for $16 million plus. And I'm in a meeting with bankers and attorneys and all these people who were making money. And these people came to our facility and we're having this meeting. And I'll never forget this. The banker, she said, people that are making less than $35,000 a year and they have, 3 or more kids, that's below the poverty line, whatever the quote was. And I'm sitting in the meeting. I'm like, yeah, that's me. I was like, no, that's me. I'm poor. I was like, I'm Gordon. Yeah, I'm poor. Right. I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm poor. All right. Like I qualify for that. We would have that meeting, have our meetings. We would end the meetings. These people would leave. I'd be all suited up. We'd be in the meeting. They would leave. After the meetings were over, I would clean the building. Like I was like mopping, cleaning, vacuuming the buildings. One hand, I'm at the table doing the deal. The table, when it's all over, they don't know. I'm cleaning the building, trying to make extra money. Let me just tell you something. When you talk about intimacy, your right now reality does not have permission to rob you of your greatest dreams. I know somebody needs to hear that. I understand you're in a jacked up situation. You might have been abused. You might be out of shape. You might be like lacking the money. You might qualify as being poor, destitute, whatever. Your health might be failing, whatever. I understand. Your greatest dream does not have to be hindered by your right now situation. I'm so single. Yeah, you single? Yeah, guess what? You're perfectly positioned to be married. Like, don't trip. Your singleness is the perfect positioning for you to be married. You'd be screwed if you were married, because then you'd be like, man, I'm married. I can't even get married. So let me just help you. You start moving into things and you're like, well, you know what? I'm not going to keep denying myself because my current situation is in contrast to my greatest dreams. Yeah, that's what dreams are. Dreams are always in contrast to your present situation. That's why they're dreams. That's why we have them. That's the whole point of having an imagination. You were supposed to think in contrast to your current situation. That's the point of the thought. It's to take you from this place into another place. Your thought. I'm sitting here right now in this seat, but my thoughts can take me on a cruise. My thoughts can take me around the world. You all know. My thoughts take me to stages to speak from. I enjoy doing this. This is fantastic. But one day, we're going to do this. We'll be like in a green room somewhere. We'll have like a private session. We'll talk about, remember those days? Right? We're going to have some remember those days. Like, remember those days when we started? Remember, like Bianca, I saw Bianca on here. I could talk to Bianca and like, hey, Bianca, remember when we started? Remember when I started the gym? Bianca was there when I started the gym. Remember when I started the gym in my basement? There were like 6 women in my laundry room. And I would set up stations in my laundry room. Then we would go out my laundry room and run down the block. And I was like, do you remember that? And then Bianca has been with me so long. Somebody gave me like a special hat on TikTok. Bianca's been with me so long. She saw me build a gym, like have a facility. Bianca would travel in the winter for more than an hour on the bus to come to the gym. She paid a price to be there. She was like, I'm going to be there. Like, see, this is why you got to have some people around you that they're like, look, I see you dreaming. I'm going to. I'm going. I'm part of it. I'm in on this dream. Don't be dreaming by yourself. Don't do that. Don't. No, get somebody in on the dream. Invite somebody in on the dream. Because now you're like, one, you can fight a little bit. But 2, when you get 2 people together, oh, you can go to war. And a band of 3 is not easily broken. Let me just tell you, you get 2 other people with you, and now you got a band of 3. Oh, now you're really rolling. We have more people than that right here, right now. Like, I know you might not know the person that you see their name and they're scrolling past you. You might not know that person, but I want you to think for a second about that person. If you can see that person, and some of you are here often, if you see that person and you see some names regularly, you know that they believe like you believe for something greater in their life. You don't got to really know them, but just say, hey, listen, I see that you're a dreamer. We dreamers got to stay together because guess what? A band of 3 is not easily broken. So let me just, hey, how about every now and then you just send me a message, or I'll send you a message, or I'll comment on your post and I'll encourage you on your post, and we'll just keep going because I don't want you to give up, because you know what? We're connected. We're connected. Yep, we're connected. So since we're connected, let's be connected. Let's encourage somebody. You don't have to know their whole story, but you can tell them, hey, every now and then, I just want to show up and tell you, keep going. I just want to tell you, don't give up. I know that you're crying, but weeping, it may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Just keep going. Like, that's what you get to do. The time for being like just the solo artist, that's over. We can't continue to do life alone. Right? You need somebody. Like, I understand you might have been disappointed by other people, and you might have experienced heartbreaking relationships, and people weren't trustworthy, and somebody did you wrong and all that. I understand. But if you allow your current situation to rob you of your future possibilities, your life will never be what it could have been. You don't want that. You want it all. Like, let's just be honest. You want the adventure. You want it all. Or else you wouldn't even be here. You wouldn't have sat here and listened to this. If you didn't want it all, you wouldn't have listened to this. Because I don't even see any negative comments. So that means you're actually here because it's like doing something positive for you. Because negative people would have been firing off negative comments by now. So you want it all. So don't deny yourself. Don't deny yourself that. I'm encouraging you tonight to just start admitting that you want and desire an intimate experience with your greatest dreams. You don't want them to simply remain on the inside. That young lady, she did not really want to only watch other people ride the horse in, and she did not just want a TikTok experience where she watched someone else on TikTok do it. She didn't want that. It was cool for them, but she wanted it for herself. She wanted to know what it felt like to hold on, to use her strength, to hold on and feel the horse leave her. She wanted that. And now her life will never be the same because she did the thing. Like, listen, I know we're grown-ups, but there's still life left in you. So you need to become a little more childlike. Don't let all your grown-upness like rob you of your experiences. Don't become so grown that you become boring. Let me tell you, I'm shutting it down. I promise I'm shutting down right here. There is no failure when you go. There's no failure. But what if I don't reach my goal? Then you're closer to it. Right? Like, oh, today I was going to go out and I wanted to run for 2 minutes, but I only made it for 1 minute. Great. You're only 1 minute from your goal. That's good. You're halfway there. Tomorrow you might be at 1 minute and 1 second, and you're 59 seconds away. And you keep showing up and you keep going. And guess what? Pretty soon you'll get to your 2-minute goal if you faint not. If you keep showing up, you got this. I believe in you. And somewhere on the inside of you, you believe in you too. There's some part of you, maybe not at the top level, but there's something on the inside of you that still believes. And so since we touched that part tonight, keep going. Allow yourself to have an intimate experience with your most wonderful dreams. It'll be life-changing, I promise you. Lord, thank you for this opportunity to be with these wonderful people. Thanks for giving us the chance to connect. Thank you for the breath and life within our lungs that allows us to communicate and connect and build relationships and to develop our hopes and our dreams and strategies and plans for life more abundantly. I thank you that you've given us another day to rejoice and be glad, that we could move forward and that we could have an intimate experience with our most wonderful dreams. Thank you that our thoughts are not there to torment us, but they are an invitation to something greater. Thank you for giving us thoughts, dreams. Thank you for those that are around us that are inspirational, motivational, and encouraging. And thank you for the builders that are around us. Thank you for the people that would want to go with us because they're on the journey too. Thank you for those people. I thank you for each and every person that has showed up here live, those that are on Team Replay. Thank you for them showing up because their presence is encouragement to me. And I pray that my presence is encouragement to them. That we can keep showing up, that we can keep growing, that life has not finished us. And there's still more life yet to be had, more to be experienced. I pray right now for someone who is troubled, whose heart is aching, who's having a hard time with the fear and it's holding them captive. I pray that they would do something that would move them in the direction of their most wonderful thoughts. That something would happen for them, that they could say, you know what? I'm going to take this journey and I refuse to let fear hold me. So I pray that in the midst and in the face of fear, they take action. I pray that you don't, Lord, remove the fear from them, but I pray that they would see the fear and do it anyway. That they would say, you know what, I'm just going to stand up and be defiant to fear, to doubt, to the discouragement, to my past. To whatever it is that may be holding them back. I pray that they would just have a defiant attitude and say, you know what, I'm still going forward. And I pray that you would bless them as they go. I pray that you would heal them as they go. I pray that their experiences would be healing experiences where they would smile again and even cry for joy again, that their words would be altered and they would be even softer and more caring and more tender with themselves. So I pray these wonderful things for these wonderful people. For the moments that they have invested in this time, I pray that you would restore back to them these moments in different ways, that time would be redeemed for them, and that something would be accelerated in their life, and that they would step into that place of life and life more abundantly. Lord, thank you in advance for doing these things. We count them as done and appreciate you for honoring and hearing our prayers. In Jesus' name, amen. Yep. All right, everybody. I appreciate you much. Always good to have these times with you. Dream your dream, write them down, take some action. All right. It's real, it's like simple, but we got to do it, right? So I raise my big mug to you. We are big mug people, right? I said this today in the conversation. I'm like, look, if our cups are going to overflow, and they are, right? There's going to be blessings, so much so that you don't have room enough to receive them. There's going to be some overflow in your life. And since there's going to be overflow, you might as well make sure you have a big mug to take it all, to get as much as you can get. So we're big mug people. That's what we are. All right. I appreciate you all. Have a fantastic night. I'm B.A. Shepherd, 2 P's, A-R-D, reminding you to be a shepherd. The world has enough sheep. Love you much. See ya.